my favorite piece of technology here today is that you can separate my thermostat into two pieces. So if you do not have enough wires in the wall, you are going to electrify this house. You're going from an old 4-wire system, and now you're going to a heat pump, and you need more wires in the wall.
Okay.
You do not need to run more wires. You can take my thermostat here, put the thermostat at the equipment, and I just use 2 wires in the wall for power, and then I have this power plate accessory. You just take those 2 wires for power and put the display there.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Home Service Hustle. I'm your host, Jonathan Bannister, and today I'm with a special guest, Dan Goodman. Dan is the co-founder and CEO of Building 36, but Dan's got an amazing background. So he's got over 20 years in the engineering and technology space, and he's also has formerly worked for Texas Instruments. He created the first Wi-Fi thermostat, and he was head of sales at a startup company that helped pioneer Zigbee. So there's a ton of stuff here that I want to take away. Another thing I want to touch on is Dan graduated from MIT. I've got a ton of questions I want to ask about that, but I want to welcome Dan. Thank you so much for being here at the show.
Hey, Jonathan, thanks for having me.
Dan, so let's just jump into it, right? So how, where did everything start? Let's go back to MIT. Was that always on the radar of where you wanted to go to school?
And my mother told me, I think in 7th grade, that that's where I wanted to go. I remember I wanted to play basketball for Georgetown.
Okay.
My mom knew. She's like, "You're not playing basketball. You did not win that genetic lottery." So, but it was funny. I remember in 7th grade, she's like, I was like, "Oh, Georgetown." She's like, "No, you're going to MIT." And I was like, "Okay, that sounds pretty good. I don't know." And my kind of path there obviously had a little inkling towards math and science, and kind of had done well in school. And I remember I applied early and got in, and my whole thing was like, hey, I'm gonna play basketball at MIT, and that's where I met Craig, my co-founder, and where it all started. But yeah, it was pretty early on, and it's a pretty wild place as far as just not just the education. It was kind of a grueling process to get through the place, but the people that I've met there and lifelong friends I've built there, these people are.
Did you learn how to count cards there?
It's funny. I'm only 1 degree away from all those people. No, I was. I had friends that were doing stuff like that. I was like,
okay, all right. I just wanted to make sure.
It's crazy. No, I was. I did not bring down the house, but
okay. So, all right. So, look, you graduate MIT. You start working for some companies. Obviously, Texas Instruments, and I see a couple other things there on your pedigree. So, let's talk about that. What was the experience that you took from working for those companies before? Obviously, I think we'll talk about the first company maybe that you kind of co-founded, and then you'll talk about that journey, what led you into Building 36. So yeah, let's talk about those first few places that you worked for.
Sure. So I started out at TI. TI had this really cool program, technical sales associate program. So you basically came down to Dallas or Houston. You could kind of have a choice. They'd sit you in the factory for a year. They'd rotate you through a few groups, and then they deployed you to one of the field sales offices. So I ended up traveling the Midwest, and I kind of owned a processor, right? So it was wild because all these people were out there making machines with gears and sprockets, and I'm out there saying, hey, there's a better way. Let's use a processor to do it. So it was kind of a wild, time out there. But I got to work on everything from, blood glucose meters to Pepsi machines was kind of a wild one. They're like literally the fountain machine at when you went into Burger King, like the thing in there, so that they were used to have a dial in there, and a guy would come in with a screwdriver to calibrate it. And I would say, no, you can use a processor to measure the viscosity of the liquid and be able to just do this automatically. Even worked on some thermostats back in the day. And what happened, everything was going digital, right? So once you had a machine that had a processor, there's data. And so everybody was asking me, hey, how do I get the data out of the machine? And that's where I was like, hey, we got to do wireless. And that's what led me to join the startup in Boston doing Zigbee chips. So I was, their national sales manager. I was running around the country trying to get people to put these wireless chips in their new devices. And the first big win that I got was a smart meter. So there was a shop out of Indiana that was designing this smart meter. And I said, oh my gosh, Southern Cal Edison is about to put in 5 million smart meters. I need to figure out how to make a thermostat.
Yeah.
To talk to this smart meter. And so that's when I met up with this other guy that he had shelf space at Home Depot, but he was trying to make connected thermostats. I was out there talking to all these utilities, and everybody's saying, hey, you got to make these things talk wirelessly. So, basically I was like, listen, you're doing this in China, right? And you're doing your development in China. So I have a question here in the States on how to use this product. So I call you on Monday. I get an answer on Tuesday, right? It was something completely different. So I have to ask again. And then I get another answer on Wednesday and Thursday. And then, it was still not quite right. And by Friday, I just give up. So, I went to that guy and I was like, listen, you need somebody here that can speak the language, that can make these integrations happen. You need somebody technically savvy that can do this, and somebody who understands the market. And I was like, you know what, I'm available. So it's like, all right, let's do it. So we started Radio Thermostat Company, which was Radio Thermostat Company of America, which we built thermostats with radios in them. And I lived in America. And so basically in this whole factory, trying to build these connected products. But we did it. We made the first, I would say the first mass market communicating thermostats. We had I had the Wi-Fi product at Home Depot. So before Nest, we had the 3M product at Home Depot. And then we had made thermostats for all the security world. Like there was a bunch of security companies, alarm.com being kind of the back end behind all of them, that were out there saying, hey, we've just made a cellular communicating alarm system. Let's control more devices in the house. So it's like, well, thermostat, it makes perfect sense. Like I leave the house, I turn on my alarm, set back your thermostat.
Yeah.
So we had done that and grew that into a kind of a $20 million business and ready to rock and roll, and learned a valuable life lesson about, when you co-found a company. When I was the technology, the other guy was the money, and, I was joking with you earlier, the golden rule, right? He who has the gold makes the rules. But
yeah,
just a funny story. I mean, we were sitting on Sand Hill Road in Silicon Valley, where, all the big VC guys are there. And we take a meeting with a huge VC, somebody who funded like Google and Amazon, like big dollars. And the guy sitting there at the table is like, hey, I'm going to give you $20 million right now. What are you going to do with it? And I'm sitting there like, oh, this is incredible. Like, I'm going to expand out my marketing. I'm going to hire all these product people. Like, we're going to expand the portfolio. Like, this is going to be amazing. We're going to grow this business 5X in 18 months. And then before I could even get a word out, my partner was there. He's like, yeah, I'd buy a Gulfstream. And, and that was the end of that meeting. So,
wow.
Yeah. So anyway, so there were all this thing brewing in there, but that's, that's sort of kind of the defining moment. Like we grew this thing, like clearly there was market interest in it. And then, sort of life happened and, kind of led to a little crazy turn of events. Was not expecting, but, I was just sitting, I literally was going to a customer meeting, called my wife, said, bye, I'm leaving for the day, and I'll call you later when I'm getting to the airport. And literally I called her 15 minutes. I was like, I don't feel right. Ended up calling 911, ambulance, like ended up in the hospital on a business trip in North Carolina. And, I found I had basically a malformed blood vessel in my brainstem, right? It was like, it was the whole feeling just left the left side of my body. And it was like, it was just crazy. I was only 27 years old or so. And it was like, it was just nuts. But
what do they say that's from? Just genetic?
Yeah, just born with it. Right. Oh. And it was, just this, like, you think about your blood vessels in your body, like you've got big ones go down to smaller ones, go down to, even smaller ones down to capillaries. In mine, there was this one spot where a big one went to a bunch of little ones. So there was a weakness where it formed. And what would happen is additional pathways formed around that blood vessel. And then basically one day, just like that weakness gave way and it burst. And thankfully it just bled into itself, but it swelled up. Right. Mm-hmm. And so that swelling like put pressure on her nerves. That's how I knew something was wrong. Like just all that feeling left my body. But
so when that happens, you're obviously there's trouble in paradise with the company that you and your partner have, but you're still grinding and you're doing sales calls and, hitting the pavement, and then this happens, right? That's one of those divine intervention moments that
it was. And things where I had this like inkling of frustration. I was like, do I do something different? Do I do something, it's like, I just had that moment. And then, it's like, I think the best advice I ever got was this doctor was like, if there's anything in your life you want to change, right now is the time to do it. Right. It's like, and it's like, this is a perfect excuse that you've got this ailment. Like, this is your excuse to do whatever you want differently. Right. And that's what I always tell. It's funny. I talk to a lot of young guys, especially, MIT basketball players coming up. They reach out and ask for advice on starting their businesses, things like that. And it's always like, today's the day, right? You don't need to wait till you're got a ticking time bomb in your head to make a decision on what you want to do in life, right? Like, if you feel that this is the moment, you got to make those changes, right? Because you don't know when your number is going to be called. So that was sort of my epiphany. And again, the doctors for my situation were like, we got to watch this, right? Like there's just as much risk of removing this as what ultimately needed to happen versus touching it, right? And the doc's like, I've had plenty of people that, good shape, your age, that you take this out, they walk away fine. I've had others that don't leave the operating table, right? So it's like, it was definitely not a jump to get this done. It was a kind of wait and see, but it happened, so basically it bled, it was fine for a while, it bled again, and then the third time it bled, the doctor's like, we got to do this. So like I saw it, I put it on the calendar. It was, I knew I was having surgery on March 9th, 2012. And I still have this sign in my office here that there was a movie, remember 310 to Yuma? I took that logo and it was like 310 to goodness, like the Goodman, like, my friends called me goodness, things like that. So like I got that logo here, March 10th, right? Forget about March 9th. I got to get through that. March 10th is my new day one. So I focused entirely on that. And, I set a couple personal goals. One is I said, I'm starting my new company. So I told Craig, and Craig was moonlighting for me at the last company. I finally, after like a year and a half of moonlighting, I finally got him to work full time. And then 6 months later, I was like, oh, Craig, we got to go start our own thing. And he's like, all right. I was like, you hang on to your job right now. I was like, May 1st is our day. I was like, I need a few weeks to get through this. But the other thing I did, I signed up for a triathlon. I was like, hey, you gotta have goals. You gotta have those things in the calendar out in the future. So, had my surgery on March 9th, made all these phone calls ahead of time. I lined up all these visits, and it was funny. Alarm.com is a company that ultimately invested in us and acquired us, actually. So, I called one of the co-founders of Alarm and I said, hey, I got this idea. And she was like, yeah, come on out. Like, I'll set up the meeting with CEO. I was like, okay, hold that thought. Like, I got to take care of something. I'll be there May 1st. And sure enough, we were there May 1st, and they invested in us essentially immediately. We're on their payroll by August and fully funded by October of that year. So it's kind of a wild ride.
That's a cool story. And, I think all of us, maybe not to that grand of a scale or that big of a aha moment like you saw, but I think all of us at some point in our life have those moments. And I think unfortunately people just miss those opportunities, or they say, oh, it's not that. I even think that inner voice kind of tells them, this should mean something, or I should pay attention to this, or this is, someone trying to tell me something. And so that's super cool that, you saw that as the restart and day one moment for you. So congrats there. And
it's for anybody. It doesn't have to be that. Like, if there's anything that you want to do differently, today is the day that you start doing it differently, right?
That's
like,
right.
Don't wait for any of this. Just it's
and I think that's what a lot of people do, unfortunately, is they go, well, when I get to this, I'll do this. And when I get this and obtain this thing, I'll do this. And it's like, well, you can't, because like, that's not the way life works. And there's going to be, continuous hurdles that come in your way. It's like, that's not what growth looks like. It's not this straight chart that goes up, unfortunately. So, all right, well, let's talk about, so you got the funding, started the company in 2012. Yeah. And then, so where did the company start at in its beginning stages? Like, what products and services were you offering? And then what does it look like today?
Yeah. I mean, what we saw is that, so when I was selling thermostats into Alarm.com's ecosystem, and like, I'm a recovering engineer. So this stuff is like, it's cool as hell. Like, it's nerdy stuff. Like, it was basically, I took the Alarm.com platform minus security and said, listen, only 20% of American homes have security, right? So if you have a monitored security system, that penetration has been about 20%, maybe low 20% penetration since the 1970s when monitored security kind of came out.
Okay.
So we said, this stuff is amazing, right? Like, I could sit there on my phone and like, oh, I could see there's the dog walker, there's the housekeeper, there's the kids coming home from school, there's, it's like, hey, I should set back my thermostat. I'm uncomfortable, right? Or, just that general awareness in my home, like, hey, my water heater's not leaking. All of that in one app to protect my biggest investment. I'm like, this is a no-brainer. This should be in 100% of American homes, right? I don't understand why we only security customers can get this. So I said, listen, let's take all that cool stuff that we have from Alarm and then strip out security, because we know, there's another 80% of the market to go after. And then let's bring it to the professional trades, because those are the guys who are in the homes at the moment of pain.
Okay.
Right. And that was like, hey, that is the answer. That's how we're going to just change the world. And really what we found was that, right, HVAC guys are busy, right? And they're busy making a lot of money that it's hard to visualize that, like, well, wait a second, if you're making $20, $30, $40 a month from every home you go to, that adds up to a lot of money, right? But it's distracting from the, $20,000 sale that is, has kept your light on for the last 80, 100 years, right?
Right.
Like, and we learned that it was too kind of IT centric, right? Like you just needed guys who knew how to do all this other computery stuff to set up this technology, that it became again, a distraction, right? Is really what it came down to. We started out with broadband, so you had to like plug it into the modem in the house or the router in the house, and then you had to like pair up all these devices, and then you had to go in and sell a la carte with, hey, do you want a door lock? Do you want video cameras? Do you want light switches? Like, and really there was nothing specific for HVAC, right? It was really just another service that they could provide on top of what they were selling.
Okay.
And what we figured out was we need to make products for HVAC companies, right? This needs to dialed in and say, what problems for HVAC can we solve? And so once we started figuring that out, that's when we had that moment where it's like, okay, now we've built a product specifically for the trades, and every step of the product is meant to make everybody's life easier, right? So first thing, we ditched Wi-Fi, everything is cellular. So when I go into a house now, I just plug the thing in and turn it on, and boom, it's connected, right? So now you're not sitting there trying to figure out Nana's Wi-Fi password or why their router doesn't. Yeah. It's on, it's connected, right? But it's also connected not only for the homeowner to have an app, but it's connected back to the contractor. So every time that system calls for heat or calls for cool, and the house doesn't do what you'd expect it to do, the customer gets an alert and you get an alert, right? So now you tie this to your maintenance program, because you're paying those cellular fees and because you're providing more stuff than just a connected thermostat. You can now offer that as part of your maintenance program. The customer says, "Ooh, you didn't get out to do my PM this year, so I'm gonna piece out on this maintenance program." Now it's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. Like the connected monitored service that we offer as part of our maintenance plan is part of that connected app. So if you don't stick with us in this program, I'm gonna have to turn that off." And what we've shown is that is enough to, even if you miss that PM, that customer stays on that maintenance program. We're showing over 90% retention of maintenance programs. And that's been the magic piece. And so, we figured out cellular. We figured out all the features for HVAC contractors, like maintenance reminders. So you can literally sit here today, say business is slow, boom, hit a button on your computer, boom, 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 everybody gets push notifications. It's time to schedule your maintenance. We see that direct call to action, customers book maintenance programs. We got a preseason test, right? It's, getting into that shoulder season. Thing app pops up and says, hey, it's time to test your system, right? And it automatically runs through, it turns the heat on or it turns the cool on, it makes sure the house recovers on time. And then we're monitoring this 24/7, right? So that we can sit here and see every single cycle, but everything is branded for the contractor. When you put the thermostat on the wall, there goes the contractor's logo. When you open up the app, the book appointment button goes right to the contractor. So it's all of this piece that ties back for the contractor, that, we're solving all of these kind of headache problems of, right, I'm inefficient because I'm going into houses that don't need anything right now. I am, it's like I'm swamped on the busy days, but I can't get the phone to ring on the slow days. And the big thing is that Google sitting here, charging an arm and a leg for every single click that you want into the house. We can prevent the customer from going to Google in the first place because they remember who you are because they're interacting with this app on a daily basis, right? You think about that broken system happens once every 3 or 4 years. Now, it's like, who is that nice guy that came out to my house again? Now it's like, no, our users log into this app 1.7 times a day.
Really?
Yeah. You think about that impression rate, right?
And so what makes that number so high? Like, is it if they have other things tied into the app, or is it just if they have the AC stuff on?
I mean, so we have our base kit, right, is our essentials kit. Comes with a thermostat, a water sensor for the water heater, and a light switch. And just between those devices, thermostats are super, super engaging pieces of equipment, right? It's amazing how often people kind of fiddle with that, and even just come in and check on it, right? They're just opening up the app and looking at it, saying, okay, is it hot? Is it cold? So we're the thermostat is a key piece of driver of that just retention or engagement. other features that we see, doorbell cameras are big drivers, door locks are big drivers. So it all compounds. But the thermostat alone, like when you look at a system without a thermostat and a thermostat, or a system with a thermostat, it's like a 20% lift in engagement.
Okay. So what does that look like? Like, what is y'all's best practices, I guess, for how do you suggest or recommend to a contractor on how to present this the right way? Another question would be, I know there's some similar types of products out there that'll do some monitoring. It's kind of like an add-on feature, but a lot of people that I know that are using those devices, they actually sell their maintenance plans around, well, there's going to be a cost associated maybe with the contractor. So they're willing to pay that cost to offset one of the visits. So instead of coming out twice a year, it's like, well, you do have some monitoring on your system, so we don't need to come out as much. It's going to tell us when we need to come out. So kind of talk through, how do y'all best practice recommend it?
I mean, so the biggest thing is to have one maintenance plan, one price, right?
Okay.
Everybody's technicians have been trained on how to sell a maintenance plan. When you start giving choices, right, you know how it goes. It sort of always leans down and into the lower price one for starters. And second is that it just
a confused mind will always say no, right?
Exactly.
I mean, I can't stand when clients want to go, well, it's 185 for the first system, and and I'm like, man, I know what your world is, and I'm confused right now. So what do you think your customers are? Just give one price. You're losing money typically no matter what on it. It's a lost leader, but there's a purpose behind it. Go get 20,000 of those contracts and move on and be, super wealthy, right?
Right, exactly. And we'll get 20,000 of those, but imagine retaining 90% of those instead of 50% of those, right?
Yeah.
Like, growth story is there. But so number one, have a single price. You don't have to upsell. Nobody has to upsell. Just one price. It includes, includes the smart maintenance program, right? Or the smarter maintenance program.
Okay.
It includes the smart home. Number two is find those seamless places of, you just get this, right? Don't make anybody sell this. Like our kits are pretty inexpensive. Every new system is going to come with a thermostat anyway. Use our thermostat instead of whatever it is that you were going to use, right?
Okay.
So now all of a sudden, every new system just gets a smart system, right? Why are you selling a dumb water heater? Sell a smart water heater that has a water flow meter and shut-off valve in it, right? Don't sell a dumb HVAC system, or even worse, don't sell a HVAC system that the thermostat belongs to some other company. Because think about that. You went out there, you acquired that customer, you probably paid a lot of money to acquire that customer, and the first thing that customer does is goes and gives their contact information to some other company, right? It's like, if I want to go get a Nest, I got to go to Google and give them my contact information if I want to activate that account, right? You can hold on to that customer by just giving them this equipment when you're, just replace the existing stuff that you were going to do and put Building 36 instead.
Yeah.
So it's simple. So look for those opportunities. And where we're going is pivoting into maintenance calls where, hey, you're out there, normally they give a 20% discount or whatever it is on that service call. Hey, if you sign up for our maintenance plan. So today it's sign up for our maintenance plan, and maybe instead of a 20% discount, it's a 10% discount. And by the way, we're going to give you this great thermostat and essentials kit to start monitoring your equipment. So that way, if you ever have a problem again, we'll be out here.
So is there a one-time fee for the kit that you said is kind of pretty, and then there's a monitoring cost associated?
Yeah. So, and that monitoring fee includes cellular, right? I mean, think about it. If you were going to add a cell phone to your, Verizon or AT&T plan right now, you're looking at $40, $50 a month, right?
Right.
We're talking wholesale to the contractors under $7 a month. So they can take, for our $7, go out there and include that in their maintenance plan.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And again, there's volume discounts, right?
Yeah.
They come, Priya, who runs our sales team, she gets mad at me, but they call me Discount Dan, right? Let's go. You want to make a deal? Let's make a deal.
That's right.
But so it's like, it's not expensive. Kits, under $500. You're looking at $325 is the basic essentials kit, which comes with a color touchscreen thermostat, a cellular connection into the house, water sensor, smart plug, right? And then you can add on to it. You want to add another thermostat. You want to add more door locks, light switches, whatever it is you want to add to it. So the customer might have stuff in their house. Pull it right in the app, right? So if you have LiftMaster garage doors, or if you have Lutron lights, or Schlage lock or Quickset lock, or
yeah,
all that just integrates right into the app. So we can start slowly going around your house. Chances are you probably already have one of these other devices, and boom, we can pull it right in. We've done integrations with some of the proprietary thermostats out there. So like, Lennox iComfort will come in, Ecobee will come in, Carrier Infinity will come in. We got Rude that's on its way. We'll have that in about a month. April Air's thermostat is coming into the ecosystem. So, the idea is not to sit here and say, I only want to sell my proprietary stuff. The point is for the contractor to say, this is my app that I give to the customer that doesn't have, there's no big tech name on it anywhere. It's not Google's app. It's not, Amazon's app or anything like that. This is the contractor's app that he goes out there, put it in front of that customer, and then this becomes the avenue to be able to reach out to that customer whenever they need to. And more importantly, is for the customer to reach back out to you when they're in their moment of pain.
So the app is branded Building 36?
So just that first place is Building 36.
Right. And then
so it's called Home. But once you get inside that app, it's branded for the contractor all over it, right? So the contact us, the name at the top, like it's all over it is branded.
Yeah.
All the communications come from the contractor. So, if you get an alert, it might say, XYZ HVAC alert, your heating system is running too long, right? So all of that comes white labeled for the contractor.
And then you said like the thermostats themselves will be branded from the contractor.
Yeah, so it's a beautiful color touchscreen display, and then the logo goes right on the front of it, right? And if you click on that logo, it's got the contractor's phone number right there. There's a QR code that goes right to their website. So it's really heavily driven for the HVAC partner. Yeah.
So talk about where the technology, is and where you see the technology going. Cause I'm sure, you're a big tech guy. So let's kind of open people's eyes to what is to come.
I mean, so my favorite piece of technology here today is that you can separate my thermostat into two pieces. So if you do not have enough wires in the wall, you are going to, electrify this house. You're going from an old 4-wire system, and now you're going to a heat pump, and you need more wires in the wall.
Okay.
You do not need to run more wires. You can take my thermostat here, right? Put the thermostat at the equipment, and I just use 2 wires in the wall for power, and then I have this power plate accessory. You just take those 2 wires for power and put the display there, and those things talk wirelessly to each other. So if you want to, all of a sudden, now you're going from an old system to, I've got a humidifier, external air vent, and, a heat pump, and and it's a multi-stage heat pump. Instead of running new wires, boom, I just install at the equipment, and then display goes on the wall, we're done. So that's kind of my favorite thing that we have today, that, you don't need to run new wires. You don't have a common wire, no problem. What I've got coming out here imminently is that whole cellular piece is actually built right into the thermostat. So before you needed a hub or a security panel to get the data out of the house, now the thermostat itself just, talks to AT&T or Verizon, and boom, you're connected. And it just, so it's all right there in one place. And, it's a simple device. Like literally all the contractor has to do is walk up to the screen, type in the customer's mobile phone number, and then that's it. The customer gets.
So it runs off of the cellular data of the homeowner?
No, it's my cellular data.
Okay.
So I've got it all covered. All the customer needs to do is enter their mobile number. They get a text message to say, hey, congratulations, you just got an account from XYZ HVAC company.
Yeah.
Let's get started, set up your account. And it walks the customer through it, downloads the app, and all the other devices that we have in the box, they're all prepared. So you literally just plug in the smart plug, and all of a sudden you'll see on the screen of the thermostat, hey, smart plug added. You pull the battery tab on the water sensor added, and it's all done. That's all you need to do.
I love it. Okay, so talk through everything that's in the box and what all will just off of the base products that are in the box, what is the homeowner able to track, read, and understand? I mean,
so from the HVAC contractor can come in and look at literally every cycle of the thermostat. Every single call for heat, I can see the rise time, the fall time, how long that system is cycling. The customer gets kind of I would call it a customer appropriate view, right? Where it's like, hey, in the last 24 hours, your average cycle time has been 20 minutes. Your total runtime has been 4 hours.
Okay.
Right? And your system is running great. There's a big green check mark. And it's meant to be simple and clean and easy to use. And here's the app that they control it. They can set up a schedule. Like the idea for the smart plug, for example, is just put this on your foyer light. Never come into a dark house again. So let's set up a little schedule. It's going to turn on at sunset. It doesn't matter if sunset's at 4 in the middle of winter in Boston, or 9 o'clock in this time of year.
Right.
It turns on at the right time. Never waste energy, and say, hey, turn off at 11, whatever. Right. So I go upstairs, never tripping up the stairs because I can't see anything. And then, I know that light's going to turn off at 11. And then the water sensor is a no-brainer to protect the water heater, right? You just sold a new HVAC system. You know that water heater is the next thing to go. Now I sit here, hey, when I see a drop of water coming out of this thing, sends the customer alert, it sends the contractor alert, say, hey, we just got a leak out of your water sensor. You need any help, right? And it's amazing how many times that, maybe it's not in the next 6 months, but a year, 2 years later, hey, the water heater goes, and now you get a sale on that.
I love it. All right. And then, so from the contractor side, obviously you're saying they get a more robust reporting, but like, what will they be? How often do they want to look at and monitor, or are they only worried about when they get an alert saying that something's running, not normal?
Yeah. I mean, it's most of the time, it's every time something's not looking right. And
Okay.
the cycle, it's about every 4 years you have a kind of a catastrophic breakdown that needs a repair, and every 10 years you need a system replacement. And that kind of varies market to market, but generally speaking, that's what we see. And what's wild is that we see on order every single year, somewhere between 8 and 9% of customers will book an appointment through the app, right? So like they just need something, right? Whether it was alert driven, or they want to schedule their maintenance, or they want to, they just need something else. Like, hey, I need a light switch replaced, or I want somebody to come out and add a mini split to, this addition we're doing, or I need supplemental heating and cooling, something like that. Like, customers will just go in there and hit that button. The thing is, it takes a little while to build up your base, right?
Right.
So you think about the guy who has 10,000 maintenance customers, just make up a number. It takes a few years until you can get, the majority of your customers on a program like this. But once they're there, A, you're not turning them over. But B, it's like you'll see that kind of the law of large numbers applies, right? Because when you're talking 10% of 100 homes, it's like, okay, this is not a number. But all of a sudden, when you're in kind of thousands and thousands of homes, the number of alerts coming off this is this is good, healthy work.
Yeah.
It's spread out throughout the year, and you just start getting these alerts. They come in, and I've got a team of people that triage every alert, right? So you don't have to train somebody on how to read a graph of what the cycles are doing. I got a team that just does this. We put it in, and frankly, if you're on Service Titan, we pop it right into Service Titan. So we have a direct feed into your CRM, and Service Titan obviously is a popular one, so we'll go right into Service Titan, but we can send the data however you want into whatever system you're using. So that way your CSR is like, you don't have to train anybody on a new workflow. It's just, hey, here's another lead source.
And so is it just right now tracking the system, like the flow of the system, uptime or downtime? Like, is it airflow or anything else?
I mean, so it's funny. We actually have looked at this a lot over the years, right?
Okay.
And what we have found is that customers don't respond well to sort of broken, right? The only time you're going to book a call with a customer is when their system is very broken. So we have focused very specifically on the very broken systems, because you tell somebody, hey, you're losing efficiency, you want me to do, and then they kind of get that sales fatigue, kind of that pushback. So we've been focused on the very broken systems, but very broken is very different depending on where you live.
Right.
So San Antonio summer is a lot different than Orlando summer, right? Boston is a lot different than Colorado, right? Like, so dialing in this geographically, the thermostat, it's not just runtime, it's runtime, outdoor weather, user habits, system behavior. So like there's a lot that goes into our machine that tries to figure this stuff out. But we've done things. We have the option to do Delta T if you want it. We just find that the cost of hardware, the cost of installation, it's like you can get close enough with just a thermostat that it's like, is it really worth it to put that extra incremental hardware? You're better off spending that money on something that might be more engaging or more protective, like the water. We make a water flow meter and shutoff valve that if I detect an abnormal flow of water in the house, automatically turns the water off at the main. Right. And talk about an upsell that, first of all, it's a great ticket to sell. But second, insurance companies are basically subsidizing this, right? So you'll get a 10% premium reduction in your insurance to have one of these in here. But as far as like stickiness, that customer will never leave your maintenance plan if they have that level of protection in their house. Right.
Right. And then I know you said if they leave the contract or, try to pull out, then obviously you say, well, no, it's all tied in together. Is that the way that y'all suggested and recommended, that if they leave, then you need to discontinue it, obviously?
Yeah. No, I mean, that's, and it's sort of amazing. Like, again, some of the painful lessons we learned is that we originally started saying, hey, give the thermostat away for free and then figure out how to make money later, right? And that's, everybody's too busy to go back and upsell, right? That became distracting. And so we had the painful lesson with some of our early partners to say, all right, these guys are saying, well, these guys aren't paying us. They're not our customers anymore. So we're going to reach out to them and tell them they have to, renew their maintenance or get back on a maintenance program, or, we're going to shut this off. And they call, they text, they email, never get a hold of these people. Finally came to the day we're like, all right, we're going to turn these people off. They flip the switch and all of a sudden their phones are just blowing up. Hey, I can't control my app. What's going on? And so it triggered this whole way of getting back out to these customers. So, I don't like to use the heavy stick like that, but it's a powerful reminder of the value of the service you're bringing. So yeah, we tie it. And some guys say, they'll have a discounted plan that somebody says, well, listen, I don't want maintenance anymore, but I still want, the connected service. So they might do a discounted, instead of their $30 a month, maybe they're $15, right? But you lose all the benefits, but they're still monitoring and still able to keep that customer without losing them.
Do you have, like, you've been doing this for a long time, you've talked to a lot of contractors. Do you have that sweet spot number that y'all see has worked well for gaining additional maintenance contracts in general, price that they should charge?
I mean, it's really market dependent, right? It's wild. Like, you come up here in the Northeast and the same air conditioner that they sell in the Southeast, I mean, they're charging twice as much for the same thing up here.
Right.
And it's sort of, what the market will bear. And so I feel like to give an exact number is difficult, but to give a range, I mean, I see on the low end that kind of $16, $17 a month.
Okay.
On the high end, you'll see kind of 30, 35 a month.
Okay.
And it's, and of course they charge for additional systems and things like that. But I mean, I feel like that sweet spot is in that $20, $25 a month place where it's,
and what you're selling there obviously is coming out, physically touching and maintaining that system, twice a year, but then it's the monitoring and the upkeep of, everything else that the app and y'all do.
Right. Well, I mean, the whole thing of like, we come out twice a year is to get into the house twice. Right.
Right.
And a lot of times, you go to the house and there's nothing there to do. So we've seen a lot of our partners go from the twice a year to once a year. So they'll do the cooling at the same time while they're out there, and then rely on the alerts and notifications to figure out when there's like an emergency and when they need to get out there.
Oh, I love it.
So it basically doubles capacity, right? If you can get everything done in one call. I mean, because the whole point is you want to be out there multiple times a year so that you can hopefully be there in that moment. Well, now I can have you monitor this so that you'll know exactly when their systems are broken.
And I also think a big part of this is it is difficult. Like, you want to own as much as your backyard as you can, as many customers as you possibly can. And that's why I believe, like, as cheap as you can possibly get the club membership, get it down to that. You want it. It's hard to be profitable. You're not going to be profitable with the actual revenue you're collecting from the club memberships. It's having those people. You get to market to those people with text and email. And then if you're doing this with push notifications, and it's just much easier, much cheaper to market to those people that are already customers than to do a low cost tune-up offer to acquire them again next year and to keep acquiring them. Right.
And that's exactly it. Right. And with this, it's like, people will look at their maintenance program and say, hey, I had 1,000 customers at the end of last year. And at the end of the year, this year, I got 1,100. Right. And it's like, hey, I did pretty good. I got 10% growth. Like, good job, me. And it's like, well, wait a second. No, what really happened is that you probably lost 500 of that 1,000 and then you sold 600 more. Right. It's like, well, wait a second. If you could have hung on to 90% of those, you'd end up this year with 1,400 instead of 1,000 or 1,100. Right. You could have had 40% growth instead of 10% growth. And by the way, one of those customers is still paying you whatever it is, $20 a month. Like, that those incremental dollars add up to a lot. Right. And you're just not looking at it on that holistic basis. They're just looking at like that one snapshot in time, which is the end of the year. Right. And that's a big part of it.
I'm trying to wrap my head around all this. Like, is there value that these customers also see from having the ability to take that app and bring in outside third-party companies into it? Because I feel like, to me, that would be worth something, because I'm stuck with whoever, like, who my lights are through my door. I can't pull in a third party into my
huge value. I mean, think about it. Your house, you don't have 7 chimneys, right? You don't have a chimney for your boiler and your chimney for your furnace and a chimney for your dryer and a chimney for your stove, and like, all into one place, right? So now, same thing with connected apps, right? And it's like, again, these are my people, these nerds that are like, oh, I went out and bought this thing and I bought that thing and I got an app for this and an app for that. And like, it's cool that I have all these apps, but nothing works together, right? I love that I've got door window sensors. My kids go out to the backyard to play, right? They leave the door open. Well, send a message to the thermostat, turn off the AC, right? And like, we can just avoid that argument altogether. It's like, hey, I got this lighting in my house. My kids open the door or my wife opens the door, turn the lights on, right? I don't walk into a dark house. Or, more importantly for me is that, I travel a bit. Our house is kind of this goofy L-shaped thing. So we've got 5 outdoor light switches. I promise you that those lights are either not going to come on at night or they're never going to turn off. So now they turn on at sunset, they turn off at 11, right? I know that the house looks lived in. I know it looks lit, and all of these pieces can tie together, right? And you can just make everything work together. And even from a life safety standpoint, we have an amazing testimonial from a customer that they put in a carbon monoxide sensor at the equipment and got an alert, right? The woman had left her stove on and didn't realize it. And she just felt sick. And the company reached out to her and said, hey, your alarm's going off. And she didn't recognize the caller ID, so she didn't answer. And then they called her son. Thankfully, they had the backup number. The son calls her, was able to get her to open the door, and it saved her life, right? But when the carbon monoxide sensor goes off, we're able to actually send a message to the thermostat that says, hey, stop calling for heat. And so,
Wow.
so there's all these intelligent things that you can do together because you have this. Like if you have our dry contact sensor monitoring the float switch in a condensate pan, if that condensate pan fills up, or that float switch trips, we send a message to the thermostat to stop, calling for cool, right? Even though hopefully you wired in your float switch right, so it breaks that call for why. But if it doesn't, we will tell the thermostat to stop calling for cool.
It's just a backup, right? I mean, it's just in case, it still will shut it off. I like that. So it sounds like you have additional products that can be added to the app, but it sounds like y'all play well in the sandbox with if somebody already has a garage door sensor they use from a third party company or something, like y'all may sell one or something, but you'll still allow somebody else to come into the app.
Absolutely. I mean, I'd love to say we integrate with everybody. There's certain people that have their stuff locked down, but I would say in the world, in the ecosystem, we have by far the widest integration as far as who we work with. You come to our website and check it out. The number of people we work with, it's staggering, right? From sprinkler manufacturers to garage door opener manufacturers to lighting to door locks, right? We're not going to sit here and make every piece of hardware out there. We just want to enable all that hardware because we figured out the path into the house through the cellular radio has been really the game-changing piece of technology here.
Yeah, it makes sense. I think that's the way to go. And I think, y'all will capture a lot of people in this market because it sounds like a lot of people don't want other people to play in their sandbox, and I don't, you mentioned the dispatch software earlier. You mentioned, Service Titan, like they're one of those software companies, look, all my clients use it, but unfortunately, like they don't play well with other companies. And I just think that there's going to be competitors at some point that are going to come and disrupt them because of that. I mean, because I think at the end of the day, technology has to be able to communicate. You've got to be able to pull data in and out. They, you're what you produce, the products you make, there may be another thermostat that somebody wants to use. And it's like, well, that's okay. Cause you're like, hey, we're compatible with a bunch of other, companies. So it's like, why would you not want to be able to, get some kind of customer base that likes something else that they're already currently using?
Right. Well, that's a huge piece of what we do. I mean, we are kind of switching, right? We make this platform. We know, we're really good at data. We're really good at data analytics, and sort of the magic of getting the data in and out at scale. I mean, because you got to remember, this is not just me and my garage here. We're in over 10 million properties. So we have we've been doing this a long time. Our stuff is, while Building 36 doesn't market this as a mission critical life safety system, we're literally running mission critical life safety software. So like we do not come down for maintenance, right? It's 24/7, 365. We're probably at 3 nines reliability. So we just like this stuff. Our ops team is phenomenal. But because we're doing this at the scale we're doing it, we've got the investment that it's over $250 million a year that we spend on R&D to make sure that this stuff is secure, to make sure it's reliable, that we're not letting hackers in, or we're doing our best to keep them out. But really the focus on security, and data privacy, that no other company is even thinking about this. And that's just our very core of what we do.
Well, and look right there, for the listeners you're going to hear this, I just want you to know that your, current people that you are doing business with, when it comes to, your dispatch software and these other softwares, I assure you, they are selling your customers' data. They are making millions of dollars off of it. And, what Dan is saying here is that, like when you push or sell some of these other, let's say thermostats that are owned by Google and some of these other companies, like the first thing that they have to do is they have to log in, create an account, and Google owns all of that information.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, do you want Google owning your customers' information and being able to sell products that you may be able to sell and that you may be able to make money off of? And it's like, I want to be able to own as many as my customers' data as I possibly can to market to them. That's the reason why you're getting these club memberships. So like, you need to retain as much of that as you possibly can.
And that's the whole story. That's what we're doing. And along that front of data sharing, I mean, one program that we do have that I think is pretty interesting is that because we provide the back end for all these security systems, we've got over 1 million homes with thermostats on the security side. And if you're a security company, you don't want the phone call of, I got a broken thermostat, right? Because of course you call the HVAC guy and say, it's not a broken thermostat, right? It's never the thermostat. It's always the HVAC system. So we've actually established a program called Pro HVAC where we are partnering security companies with HVAC companies so that for a discounted price, you can monitor the security guy's customers, and then you're going to get the same alerts and leads and all those things, except now, A, you don't have to install any hardware, and B, we can kind of turn it on overnight. We present an offer to the customer, and we're seeing, over 35% of customers are opting into this. So it's, it's not just that customer's name when an alert happens. You're getting the customer list from the day they subscribe. So we've done, I mean, the response rates have been phenomenal. Our contractors that are enabled this, we've turned it on in a handful of markets so far in Washington, D.C., in down in Texas and San Antonio, Houston, Dallas. And, we're looking to roll that out nationwide, and just to help foster that relationship, right? That these are customers that value service providers, that they go to trusted professionals because they already clearly have monitored security. To get monitored HVAC is a no-brainer. So, that's another program that we're rolling out. So there's a lot of markets across the U.S. that, that those customers will be able to do that. And to the other, 9 million customers that don't have thermostats for monitoring, let's go get thermostats in their house and we can monitor those too.
I love it, man. This has been great. All right, look, we're getting to the end here, Dan. This is where I like to ask some rapid fire questions. Let everybody get to know Dan a little bit better. Outside of being a card counter at MIT, he's going to talk about some of his first thing that comes to mind. All right. So, childhood hero.
My dad.
Beach or mountains?
Beach.
Famous person that you would invite to dinner. They could be dead or alive.
I'm going to go Eric Larson.
Interesting.
He's written some pretty cool books. So
yeah,
guy right now.
Most adventurous thing that Dan's ever done.
Say a 7-week tour of Southeast Asia and Australia and New Zealand after I graduated from school.
Solo?
One buddy.
One buddy. Nice. What would be your spirit animal?
Oh man. That's a great one. I'm thinking of my walrus t-shirts. Just a big happy walrus.
Okay. What's something surprising that most people don't know about you?
Something surprising. I mean, just the life journey I've been on, right? Getting some serious bad health news at a very young age.
I love that story. And I hope that makes a huge impact on people out there that hear this. If you had to make a sudden career change, what would it be?
Well, I have my retirement job is I want to be a duck boat tour guide for the city of Boston when I retire.
Okay.
But if it wasn't that, probably a basketball coach.
Is that the boats?
Yeah, you ever see those duck boats that it's a big Boston, it's super touristy.
Okay.
I just feel like I'd love going out there, cracking jokes. I'd turn on my Boston accent and make sure everybody had a good time. So I love history. I love Boston. I'm like, all right.
I just saw the in my head, I was seeing the movie The Breakup. Like, you remember what I'm talking about? Jennifer Aniston and the brother like ran that side of all the brothers had this business, but it was Chicago, but
Okay.
they were going to take Chicago by land and sea for
Yeah.
tourism,
Yeah. It's similar to Boston.
All right. And so does Dan believe in aliens?
I believe that the universe is quite large, and it would be selfish to think that there's not something out there. But I've got no concrete evidence of anything to this day.
Yeah. I mean, we're like smaller than a speck of sand, so it'd be hard to believe that we're the coolest, people that could be thought of. Well, Dan, man, this has been super awesome. I'm going to talk to you as soon as we get off here about, possibly let's put a webinar or something together that you can actually, maybe do some show and tell and show people how this works on a training call. Cause I really feel that this should be in every single person's home. And I think all of, the contractors that we're in relationships with, like they need to know about this, and they should be putting this as part of their branding kit, and that, any customer's home they go to, they ought to be slapping this stuff in for sure.
Hey, own the home, right? That's what we're all
That's
about.
right. Own the home. That's right.
Own the home.
Well, Dan, it's been a pleasure. I do appreciate it. And we'll get together and talk about a webinar.
Sounds great. Thanks.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.